All right, folks, welcome back once again. This is KJ here with Rigged Reality Radio, your alternative to the alternative media. Welcome back, guys. Got a great show for you tonight. We got 2 hours tonight with our friend Neil Sanders. Here on the radio show we cover all kinds of stuff, and to me it is kind of just the whole piece itself, of course, the whole bigger piece, of course, is itself a lot of smaller pieces put together. And each one is unique and individual. Neil is one of those pieces to me that's very important. I'm really glad I got him on the show. I saw an interview on YouTube with him way back, and then from there I just kept going. He's also an author. He's got a couple of books. Let me tell you a little bit about him. I'm about to bring him on here, but he's got degrees in psychology, film and media studies. He's also a hypnotherapist. He's collected and analyzed and declassified documents, papers, court transcripts, confessions from doctors, and testimony from victims and whistleblowers to come up with a lot of interesting research on mind control. Okay, so that being said, let me just go ahead and bring Neil on because I can go on forever. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, KJ.
Hey, man, you're welcome. So how was that for a lead-in? Did we miss anything important?
No, that was very, very kind of you. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. One of the things that really blew my mind about your work, of course, is your actual books. Neil's written books called Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, Volumes 1 and 2. You want to maybe just kind of cover a little bit on those books, Neil, kind of some of the subjects you cover in there?
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. Well, Volume 1 is basically called mind control, mass manipulation, and perception management. And what it really deals with is the nuts and bolts of the history of government mind control. And by that, we mean really MK Ultra and the projects that preceded them, like Bluebird and Chatter and things like that, which basically dealt with a whole gamut of things from trying to elicit confessions with truth drugs, to trying to wipe people's memories so that they couldn't be affected by truth drugs, to basically trying to take control of people for espionage reasons or assassination purposes, what would be termed the Manchurian candidate, or a hypno-programmed assassin, or a hypno-programmed courier of information. And basically what I talk about is the growth of the CIA movement, the growth of the UK movement, which came out of an institute called the Tavistock Institute, which was essentially a psychological warfare department. It was connected with the British military and also the British psychological associations. And really what they were interested in was the breaking down of a person's psyche, reducing populations at large to a childlike state, which they called fluidity. And basically the point of this is, from individual to mass mind control, if you can get people traumatized or in fear or always on the back foot, so they're requesting help from an authority figure, then you've got them, basically, because they're in a state where they're more malleable, and you can basically impose your will on them. And from on there, basically, I talk about all the various types of experiments in MK Ultra, which was hypnosis, the use of various drugs like LSD and various other truth drugs, which are all escaping my memory at the minute, stelazine and things like that. And then on to the use of implants and psychotronics, which basically works. There's several different ways that these can work. There are implants that can actually physically, by electrical impulse, control muscle reflex. There are also implants that can cause intense pain or pleasure in the brain and therefore direct a person. And there are also implants that can basically affect the emotions and the physicality of a person. And this can also be affected by beam weapons, radio waves, microwaves, extremely low frequency waves, and the whole gamut. And then the first volume winds up talking about how the Phoenix program, which was it was basically a torture program that was held against the civilians of North Vietnam, in order to purge the threat of the Viet Cong. Basically, they felt if they destroyed the morale of their supporters in very, very violent and horrible ways, then this would basically destroy the support for the actual group through the destruction of the morale. And what I do is the final chapter. It takes off from Dave McGowan's work, where he suggests that basically a lot of serial killers were actually government trained, and the purpose of this was to basically do a sort of Phoenix program on the American public, which just so happened to be the raison d'etre of the Tavistock Institute, to basically create trauma at home. With the serial killer, you can't escape. They kill at random. They kill any age level. They might break into your house, and mysteriously, the sort of influx of what we would call the sort of superstars of serial killers happened just after William Colby, who was running the Phoenix program in Vietnam, came back and started heading up the CIA in America. So that's the first the first book, sorry. The second one is called Marketing Movies and Music, and it basically covers that. It covers all the different tricks that could be used in advertising, how you can create a brand, how you can create something out of nothing. There's a large essay in there on diamonds and the fact that diamonds are intrinsically worthless. They're not difficult to get hold of. There's a massive stockpile of these things, and yet due to a successful marketing campaign, these things are A, connected with love, B, connected with engagement and marriage, and C, deemed to be very, very, very expensive, despite the fact that there's no reason that they should be. And from then on, I examined various aspects of sales, different things that can be used to trick you into buying products, the layout of shops, the way that advertising and text and colours and things like that work, the movie industry, the music industry, and then I wind up talking about the various doctors and LSD gurus that suddenly sort of fell onto the Haight-Ashbury area.
Hey, Neil?
Yeah?
Okay, good. Sorry, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man. That's so much great information. And here's what I want to do, too, if you don't mind. I want to jump back and kind of cover a couple of things you had mentioned from the first volume and just kind of go from there, because I could just sit back here, but, man, you throw so much at us, which is great.
Sorry,
but no, no, you're good. You're good. I know it's really late for you, so once again, thanks again. So here we go. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, you have mentioned about the like the weapons they'll use on us, kind of the gang stalking type stuff and all this. Yeah. What's your approach to a lot of these shootings out here? I remember the Navy Yard shooting here in America. The guy there, he was saying that he was having voices in his head and stuff like that. And
he was actually making claims that I believe he actually said microwave weaponry. I mean, whether that's true or not, the technology exists. There's at least 3 very eminent people that were involved with MKUltra that were making products that could do this sort of thing in the sort of 70s and early 80s, and even before. Basically, you've got various things that could put voices into people's heads. One was the Smirnoff patent. The Smirnoff patent was made by Igor Smirnoff. Basically uses it's subaudioal waves, so basically it's just a recording, but it's at a frequency that can be picked up by the sort of nerve, the oral nerve, but it can't be sort of heard, so to speak. And basically it puts a voice in your head. It's kind of akin to schizophrenia. And if people don't think this is true, the one time that they were going to use it, it was against the Waco compound, and the FBI decided that they wanted to get David Koresh out. So they actually got the actor Charlton Heston to record a series of dialogue where he was pretending to be God. And they were going to beam Charlton Heston into his head and get him to release, come out the compound or whatever.
Wow.
In the end, they decided that basically Igor Smirnoff says, look, there's about a 70% chance of success. It could go wrong, and they could wind up all killing each other. And so the FBI basically backed off and thought it was far more sporting to let the ATF set them all on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, okay, then what about you? I mean, I imagine just like any one of us who claim to be somewhat awake, you probably read the headlines a lot different than your average Joe. So whenever you see these shootings and things like this, how often do you kind of see something behind the scenes there?
yeah, there's often something very, very suspicious, like Jared Loughner as well was the other one. The targets, the people that get hit is always something to look at. I think when Jared Loughner shot that senator, there was another person that got hit that was remarkably sort of important to something, and that wasn't sort of the main thing, because the main sort of story in the media was this woman's triumphant recovery or whatever. But sometimes, I mean, it really depends what you believe, but there's certainly, with school shootings and the like, the you could make the argument that this is to cause trauma. There are enough discrepancies in certainly Columbine, for a start, I mean, and Virginia Tech. There's so many discrepancies in the actual reported mainstream story and the actual reports of eyewitnesses and such like that to know that there's something dodgy going on here. And then examining the people involved, there's enough red flags for you to go, that's suspicious. That's very, very, very suspicious, the way that these people are responding and such like that. So yeah, basically, it's often on my mind that okay, this could be. I mean, the thing is, sometimes people. The thing is with school shootings, for example, they can influence other people. You get copycat shooters. And whether the first incident was a real incident, by which I mean whether it was a disgruntled kid, or whether it was like a mind control kid, or whether it was a bunch of gangsters or CIA agents that rolled up in a van and then pinned it on a kid or whatever. Do you know what I mean? The point is that it breeds terror, it breeds trauma, and then this trauma sort of magnifies and goes out and sort of spreads out, and you will get, because of the media response, they make tiny heroes, they make anti-heroes of these killers.
Well, yeah.
Every single sort of media analyst says, don't show sirens when you like on the start of the report about the shooting. Don't show the killer or the alleged killer and repeat his name again and again and again. Don't focus on weapons, because this, to an extent, sexualizes. I don't mean that in a sex term, I mean in like a psychological sense. It basically it makes it sexy. It sells it. Do you know what I mean? And if you've got an impressionable, if you were writing an action film, those are the elements that you would bring in, because it hypes things. And this is what encourages impressionable kids to sort of take up the mantle, and then they'll go into school and or whatever. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing, and the media aren't idiots. Like, they understand that this sort of thing goes on. So you've got to look at it one of two ways. Either they just don't care because they're desperate to get the ratings, okay, and so therefore they're irresponsible, or there's some sort of thing where they just like to hype society and get society as terrified and as jittery and as basically want to put people into a fight or flight mechanism at all times.
And Neil, I know that you've said in the past to always be suspicious of what goes viral. I imagine that plays into this as well, yes?
Oh, absolutely, because, I mean, the point of any information is to persuade and to alter perceptions and stuff like that. Viral stuff is... people don't understand how difficult it is actually to make people go viral, and they also don't understand that there are agencies out there that basically, Scooter Braun is the best example, that are there to create viral interest. He's the person that's behind Justin Bieber and also Gangnam Style. And this is what he specializes in, by his networks upon networks upon networks, making something viral by getting it and positioning it into the right place. The greatest sales technique, right, is to make somebody believe that they want something but they don't know why they want it, and to also to make the person believe that you're their friend. You're not selling. Yeah. As a salesman, if you're trying to sell something, you've failed. You never sell anything. You do someone a favor.
Yeah, and even with Psy, I love how they tell you. I mean, Psy, short for PSYOP. Yeah. We find out the guy was ex-military, and he had actually done a song that was anti-American years ago. So, you see, we start seeing this. There's just randomly. Actually, last night I was on another show. If you guys aren't familiar, check out Free Radio Revolution at Red Pill, Free Radio Revolution at Red. You know those guys?
Yeah.
So, those guys have a show, and check it out sometime. I was on with them last night. We're talking about Ebola. I'd like to get your take on that as well, because I just started looking into it. One thing I thought was interesting, though, is this lady they say that took this new vaccine. Her last name it's Writebol, Writebol, last four letters EBOL, right?
Oh, right.
For Ebola.
Nice. I mean, it's difficult to say with all these things. I tell you what's interesting as well with everything that comes into the social media sphere at the minute. I get the impression that they like to get people into arguing factions because with this Ebola scare. Okay, I've seen people arguing already about it. It's not real. It's a psyop to get you terrified. It is real, but the double bluff is that you won't be terrified because you think it's a psyop, and then you're going to die. Do you know what I mean? And so people,
I do.
So I tend to like to sit back and say,
yes.
I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I don't know. I could speculate. And the two options would seem to be that they want to sell vaccines or they want to kill a lot of people. Or it could be that basically this is actually a genuine sort of a story that's been hyped up by the media because they have a cross-contamination with the news organisations and pharmaceutical companies. So whether this is a real story or not, you probably won't know because the only avenue of understanding the situation is through the media. And if these particular media outlets have got shareholder interests with Pfizer, say, or Glaxo, or any of these big companies, then they are basically forced by legality to try and increase the share price of that particular brand. So they couldn't possibly do a story on the news that would affect the sales of anything to do with that particular company. That would be illegal and they could be sued for that. So these are the things that you have to be very, very careful about. I think they're getting a bit more savvy with these things, and I think they pump out stuff so people jump on it and immediately stake a claim and say, it's this. So they get into an argument. It could be this. My attitude is always, all right, that's interesting. Put a pin in it and let's see what develops.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and don't freak out. Don't wig out. Relax, guys. Relax. Take it easy. Let's let it play out. Let's see what happens.
I mean, it really, again, I could see arguments on both sides. There's been an awful lot of pandemic-style films, like recently, and, that obviously is present in people's minds. But again, you could make the argument that's a very brilliant marketing strategy by some people who had some stuff to sell later on. Do you know what I mean? Again, keep the fear ratcheted up, keep it there. Whether the threat is real or not, that's not really important to the powers that be, per se, because it's not about what happens, it's about your reaction to it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I do. Is there any so-called alternative media that you trust or not? What are your thoughts on alternative media now?
Well, a lot of people basically say, Russia Today is the one to trust. I don't particularly buy that. As far as I'm aware, they're financially connected to the FSB, or at least they were, which obviously is the new name for KGB. To suggest that a corporation that was that big, yes, of course they do some very interesting stories and stuff like that. But to say that they're basically the bastion of truth, I would very much be careful about that. I don't know really. I tend to. You've got to watch the news because basically you've got to be aware of what most people have got going around their
right.
heads. Do you know what I mean? And what is interesting in their world. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Like there's ways of decoding certain articles to read between the lines and find out what is the actual truth. I mean, obviously we've got a thing that I'm sure you've got an equivalent of in America called D-notices in England, which is basically the Department of Defence or Parliament. I'm not entirely sure which particular branch puts it out, but it means that you can't talk about a story in the press for reasons of national security. I don't think that's the actual phrase that is English, but you understand what I mean by that.
I do.
And so there's so many stories that you just wouldn't hear about anyway, and that's even before you're getting into there's two types. There's soft journalists, and then there's embedded agents. And soft journalists basically, I forget who it was a CIA agent, but the quote was that basically, there's several, you can play the media like a Wurlitzer. Another one was, a good journalist is cheaper than a good hooker. And stuff like that. You know, we don't care because we control everybody at a board level. So we don't care about journalists because we control these organisations at a board level. That quote's not exact, but you understand my point.
I do, and I want to throw this one out as well. Edward Bernays, something
Yeah.
else with him. I know you've done a lot of study. I know, and I learned this from you actually. But he's related to Freud, and I didn't know that. So why is that? Why does that matter? Why is that important?
Because basically, well, I mean, because he uses the psychoanalysis. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Freudian psychoanalysis, but it is a way, an insight into manipulation. And what he did was he took psychoanalysis, Freudian psychoanalysis, and used this as a way to sell products, affecting people's natural urges and instincts to in order to basically make people buy. But really, the famous one is cigarettes, where women, it was very uncouth for women to smoke, and so he basically organized for them to all be a load of beautiful young girls to be photographed smoking Lucky Strikes, torches of freedom they were called. And he
Wow.
did this was like a proto-feminist statement. If you want to be equal to men, then you can smoke cigarettes. And so all of a sudden all these women are going out and smoking cigarettes, buying a product, spending it to basically as a symbol of their independence. It's not a million miles away from the concept of L'Oreal. You can spend money on our very expensive products, right, to make yourself a better person than you are because you're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? You're flattering and scaring people at the very same time. So it's a strange dichotomy. The best place is to cause a schism in people's sort of thought process. So all of a sudden they have to fill that gap, so to speak. What you do in advertising, any type of advertising, is you create a problem that people didn't know that they had, and then you offer the solution for it.
It's interesting. Do you ever watch Mad Men? Are you familiar with that show?
You know what? Right, I haven't actually seen it. I keep being told that I should do, and I appreciate that we're on season 4. I haven't seen Game of Thrones yet either. I'm terribly, terribly behind. Right? And
Yeah.
people be like, you'd love these programs, Neil. But no, I'm afraid I haven't. But I'm aware of that. It basically, there was a bit with Doug Draper. Is that his name? And he was talking about the use of fear and the use of aspiration. And basically, that's how you sell stuff, is basically make people frightened and then give them this magic cure.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I mean, revealing their method, that's how they do it through entertainment, but absolutely telling us the truth about advertisement. Now, I myself have done a few videos on kind of the sexualization of children. That's a big thing now. We're seeing it everywhere. What's kind of your take on that? What's your angle on what's going on with that? Why are they pushing that so much now?
Well, again, it really very much depends on what your school of thought is. I mean, the thing that can't be denied is that it's there. You get in these very. I mean, even today there was an advert in the Daily Mail, which, I mean, this is another thing about news stories. This wasn't an outrage story. This was an advertisement story. There's some skirts that are being sold, and they're called schoolgirl skirts, right? And they're very, very short, and when you bend over, you can see your behind. Fine, I don't care. But the point is that they were making it, this is outrageous because basically that it's intimating paedophilia. But actually what this story is doing is letting everybody know, because I think it was a company that's not widely available in England, so you have to go on the internet to go about it. But no, everyone will now because they know about it. And you also see this with drug stories, like we had one earlier this year. Don't take pink ecstasy because pink ecstasy is really strong. Dead cheap, by the way. Really strong, and it might kill you. And what that's actually saying is, wow, this is the pith. Go and get this. This is the strongest you can buy for the, that is an advertisement, really, isn't it? And again, these media people aren't stupid, so they understand this. Now, with the sexualization of children, these two schools of thought. One is that basically it's putting them into a market earlier and earlier. So they've got to buy aspirational clothes, they've got to appeal to boys, they've got to do this, yada yada, etc. That's one school of thought. That's certainly true. You can't deny that. The other school of thought is that it's to promote some sort of encouragement of paedophilia. And to lower perhaps the concept of sex, of the age of consent or whatever. It sounds strange, but then you get in all these scandals. For example, Penn State, Franklin scandal, McMartin preschool scandal, Presidio scandal. At the minute in England, we've got this thing with Jimmy Savile and Elm Guesthouse and Dolphin.
Yeah, that was a big deal, right?
Oh yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, like basically, again, people got very, very excited, and it's like, yes, yes, we're going to get them. Like it's all going to come out. I always said, like, did it come out with Mark Dutroux? Did it come out with Penn State? Did it come out with Franklin? No, no. Did it come out with Craig Spence?
Johnny Ghosh also, you know about him, right?
Yeah, yeah, Johnny Ghosh, like Paul Benassi testified in a court of law and was basically paid a settlement of nearly $1 million by a guy called Judge Ozborne, basically saying that his statement was factual, that he was part of an MK Ultra style sect, and he claimed that he helped kidnap Johnny Gosch, and through a gentleman called Michael Aquino, this is what Paul Benassi alleges, they sold him to a Russian paedophile site, which he ended up on these pictures of Johnny Gosch on this closed down Russian paedophile site with a brand burnt into the top of his arm.
And
This
Michael Aquino is a horror film himself, isn't he?
Well, quite, yeah. I mean, he was again alleged, proven innocent, by the way. But the allegations made in the Presidio scandal, which was there was a daycare center at the Presidio, which is a military compound in San Francisco. I may have got that wrong. It's somewhere in America, and the daycare center there, and a lot of the kids were complaining of strange scenarios going on, some involving ritualistic behavior. 5 of them came down with chlamydia. Now, I am aware that America is a little more progressive than England, but I would assume that is unusual.
Yes.
Yeah, quite. And these kids were like 5 and 6. And, they were coming home with massive vaginal injuries and anal injuries and the like, claiming that a chap called Mr. Gary, who was one of the teachers, was taking them to Mike and Shamby's house, and they were playing poo-poo and urine baseball bat games.
Wow.
Let's not elaborate on what that might have been. They claimed that these 2 people were Lilith and Michael Aquino. Now, again, these 2 were proven innocent in a court of law, and I believe he gets very heavy-handed with anybody that tends to suggest that this was not the case.
Well, but Aquino was also, wasn't he like the high priest of the Temple of Set or something like that?
Apparently so. He left the Church of Satan because he felt that the Church of Satan is non-theistic, as far as my understanding goes. I may be wrong.
I think you're right.
That there's no devil, there's no God. It's an atheistic organization, whereby
Agreed.
Temple of Set would be more akin to, I may have got this wrong, but my understanding is it would be more akin to Luciferianism rather than Satanism, in as much as it believes that these entities exist.
Well, that stuff is out there. You heard about, of course, Bob Geldof's daughter came out and said that she was in the OTO.
OTO, yeah. I mean, the thing was, she was also in Church of Scientology as well. I mean, again, that might be something to take on board, but you've got to appreciate how massively airheaded that girl was.
Well, on that note, man, you've done some great work with, because I'm really interested in this stuff too. In fact, I know you're probably a fan of Freeman, I'm guessing. Do you know who Freeman Fly is?
Yeah.
Cool, yeah, I like him too. So, I've tried, man. I've actually reached out, so hopefully we'll hear back from him. It's like I've tried him a few times, so we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully after this, maybe we're nice enough here on the show about him. He'll come on. Who knows?
He's excellent, Freeman. Very, very big fan.
Yeah, he woke me up. He helped wake me up many years ago. Anyway, all that being said, so he's done a lot of great work on mind control and Hollywood stuff. Made me look at Hollywood completely different. I'm sure you have too, because I know you have your own takes.
Yeah.
Let's go into some of that stuff. What do you think about some of these things with the artists and especially like the so-called Illuminati artists, females specifically? Go ahead.
Well, they're not in the Illuminati. I'll tell you that for a start. I mean, again, the Illuminati is one of these phrases. It's a catch-all phrase, right? Whether there's a group of wealthy families that are in positions of power and control every institution in the world to maintain their status quo. I could prove that on an Etch-a-Sketch, right? That's not debatable. That's a fact. That's not conspiracy theory. Whether they call themselves the Illuminati and go, "Oh, John, you come into Illuminati on Thursday," we don't know. So, the Illuminati is a catch-all phrase, like for this elite sect of people that basically believe the rest of the people to be expendable cattle. Now, so Rihanna, Jay-Z, Beyonce, etc., they're not in the Illuminati. They're peasants in comparison to the Illuminati in
Sure.
Commas.
They're puppets.
It does two things, right? Okay, it basically spreads this symbolism, and it does well. For some people, you get idiots. So basically, that guy, the rapper that killed his best friend because he wanted to be in the Illuminati. So it puts this idea of like being cruel and selfish, non-altruistic, and striving to get higher and higher and higher up the echelons. It suggests that is a plausible and possibly a good idea. And the other thing it does is it tells certain people that the Illuminati is everywhere. Again, hyping up this trauma. But the thing that you cannot deny is that basically the symbolism is there, and some of this symbolism you would not know about unless you're basically particularly into esoterica. And yeah, so who's that there for? Obviously, some things can just be, interpreted. You give something to somebody, crikey, look at religious texts. You can't get like two groups of people looking at the same religious text without sort of like finding different meaning in it or whatever. That's a poor example, but you know what I mean. And so yeah, there's a determination of sort of how you would interpret this and how you decode this, but you can't deny it's there. Now, some of this is there because the people who are making the video are quite savvy. I'll put it this way, right? 2 Chainz, right? 2 Chainz and even A$AP Rocky, right?
Yeah.
A$AP Rocky did a video where he was in a sort of Crowleyan pentagram, I believe. And 2 Chainz did one where he had some sort of statues behind him that I believe were I could have got this wrong, but I think they were sort of kind of Baphomet-style things. Now, both of those artists said, I keep getting all this Twitter stuff asking me if I'm there. I didn't say what was. I turned up on the day, and they said, stand there and rap. And so I stood there and rapped. And so there's some people that basically, they just don't know. So it's the production team that's basically that's peddling this. Now, some of it is basically because I believe, and I'm sure that the listeners believe, that there's an agenda. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but there's some sort of an agenda behind it. Now, some of it is just because 1 million people that are into alternative thinking but aren't into A$AP Rocky will click on that A$AP Rocky video to check out the Illuminati symbolism.
I would say some of that I'd say yes in some cases, and I am with you.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. No,
it's not.
In some cases, it depends along the line. Some people know exactly what
right.
They can very, very sort of like, and if they don't, like, they could find out very, very easily. They're making very, very overt hand gestures and symbols and eye signs and stuff like that. And again,
but there's even better examples. Let me throw these real quick at you because I can't help but not see this stuff now anywhere I look. But I was watching a horrible Arnold Schwarzenegger movie the other day called Sabotage. Have you heard of this?
I've not seen that one. No, is that a new one?
It's a new one. It still stinks. I'm just not a fan of him, but I watch these things just to see what I see. But, of course, in that movie, I always look for confirmations, too. But in that movie, there's one scene that has nothing to do with anything. They're shooting a bunch of druggies, and in the apartment, on one wall, there's a perfect pyramid with an eye. And I'm like, okay, well, there's one. That. But then, like, of course, an hour later, they do it again, but now this time it's an actual Freemason symbol. It doesn't even need to be there. So I know there is some kind of an agenda, but at the same time, I know what you're saying. Some people will also use that symbolism just to kind of gain notoriety.
Yeah, to gain traction off of it. But it had to start from some perspective. Somebody didn't just go, let's all do this weird like stuff that nearly nobody will understand and and put it in the film. You're right. And what's strange is that certain symbols obviously can affect, in a subliminal sense. Like this,
they can.
Like I'll give you an example. Is the frustratum? It's actually a Freemasonic shape. It's the capstone. Not the capstone.
Yeah.
The archstone. The one that if you flip that upside down, it's a trapezium. It's a trapezium. But there's something about that shape that affects human psychology, which is why the Addams family house and the Amityville house has got that shaped roof, and the Psycho house, it's got that shaped roof because it
oh, wow,
causes a sense of dread. Something about that shape, and there's various other things that can be used like that. So why are these things being used?
Well, colors too. I did a while back. I did a video, and I was showing how when they put red and yellow together, it creates orange, and orange kind of increases appetite and kind of right. So that's why McDonald's and Wendy's and all these famous
the primary
ones.
colours tend to speed up your synaptic response. This is basically that in fast food restaurants. It's so you're in, choose, don't think about it, and go, hang on, this is all garbage, isn't it? And then get you out, basically. Then posher restaurants, they'll sometimes have that orange hue, but it'll be a sort of a smokier, sort of sunsetty orange. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then greens and golds, because they tend to slow you down and keep you in a place. And also, basically, we assume that for some reason greens and golds, that we think that's expensive. So, that's why sometimes like the books are bound in green leather, and then they've got the gold edging and stuff.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Again, it's an instinctual response. Not everybody will have that, there's the taste and such, but certain colours affect. That's why road signs are the colours that they are, and the font that they are, because it's easier to pick up information in that way. It is.
What have you studied on with your subliminal messages? I know you've looked into that quite a bit, and anything you've seen lately?
I've not seen anything. Well, actually, I did see one. Somebody sent me a front page, and it was about Ebola, and it was basically like Ebola terror, I think it said, and. I don't know if this was an intentional subliminal, but there was a lot of stuff about the First World War above it, and so it was kind of, again, because you pick up all the information, that's just fear piled on top of fear piled on top of fear. What's interesting is that in experiments at Harvard, they basically did. It was a very simple computer task: get in, answer these questions, and get out. And unbeknownst to the people doing the test, they kept flashing up subliminal words, and half of them got positive words, like just anything positive: nice, sunshine, health, splendid, happy, anything like that. And then the other people got negative words like diseased, wretched, old, sad, anything negative. And apparently the people that got the negative subliminals, it took them nearly twice as long to complete the simple tasks. And it says it was strange, something just was befuddling me, I just could not get into my stride. And so being hit with negative energy, negative messages, can literally have a physical effect on you.
I imagine you don't watch a lot of TV.
I watch an incredible amount of TV.
Do you? What are you watching?
Everything, anything. I do watch an awful lot of TV. I'm a bit of a night owl usually as well, so I like all sorts of stuff. I like The Wire. I like Deadwood. I like Oz. I like this a lot of HBO things and stuff like that. I'm not averse to a bit of Family Guy. A big fan of like old British comedies like Monty Python, Young Ones, Hello Hello, and Likely Lads, Ripping Yarns, that sort of thing. Bill Hicks. I like a lot of Bill Hicks, and
he's my favorite.
Hoffman. Yeah, he's great. It's just a shame didn't get more material, really. But what can you do?
Well, hey, man, let's talk. Speaking of pop culture, you've done a lot of research on Facebook also. I'm not a fan. I haven't been for a long time, but let's talk about some of the social engineering that's going on, and this whole selfies thing and all that. What do you think?
Oh, I don't like that. I mean, so basically the selfie is an extension of the narcissism that Facebook breeds. Eminent studies have shown that basically Facebook tends to breed two things: dissatisfaction with your own life and narcissism. And the narcissism, they're both tied into one another. The dissatisfaction with your own life is because basically nobody understands that everyone lies on Facebook. Everyone puts the best photo up. Everyone highlights their day and puts the most exciting things that they've done. And because people are genuinely quite negative, like in their sort of outlook, because you have to be to survive. If you were massively positive, you'd walk into the road all the time. So you can prey on these negative instincts. Because people are kind of negative, they go, oh, crikey, look at everyone else's life. It's far more exciting and exhilarating and full than mine. It's terrible. And so what you tend to do is basically, it ties into a lot of things. Facebook's akin to gambling. It sets off the same pleasure responses when you get information coming through at you and a response from your host.
Someone likes you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the point. It is just like a gambling machine. You put a post on, and somebody might like it. Someone might start a conversation. Someone might say, "Oh, I can't believe you said that," and unfriend you and block you or whatever. So that's like, oh, you've lost. If you put a statement down, a joke, something like that, that's like walking up to a table and whacking down a great big wad of notes. It's like, come on then, let's see what we get. Because social information is important. It's vital. It's vital to your continuation as a person. You learn stuff. You learn how to be a better person, how to be a more successful person by examining the mistakes and successes of other people. This is why people are obsessed with aspirational TV and gossip magazines and celebrities, because basically it's a subtle instinctual drive where you're looking at them. These are the alpha male, and you go, how they got like that? You know, if I could figure out and copy what they did, I could be in that position. And whether you want to think that, your subconscious mind's doing that all the time, and that's why people become obsessed with celebrity. So with Facebook, you realise this, and you start to notice that, hang on, you know, when I put this down, I get no response. You know, when I put that down, I get a lot of response. So you know what, I'm going to put a lot of that down. I'm going to put a lot of jokes like that. I'm going to put a lot of pictures like that. I'm going to slowly mold my personality so it's more favorable for a Facebook audience. What does that tell you subconsciously? It tells you that your Facebook persona is more popular than you. It's got more friends than you. So why not change the way that you are to fit in with this unachievable ideal? And this is where the narcissism comes in, because as a sort of fight back against this depression and anxiety that's caused by feeling inadequate.
That's a great point. I could see that play out. Like, you know, somebody just got in shape, lost a lot of weight. They take a picture of them in a bathing suit, and then from then on, they're going to be that person to everybody because that's the only picture they have up. You know, so they portray that image. It's great.
Absolutely. And what's great as well is you've got the anonymity of being behind a screen. So to an argument, you can destroy somebody with a statement, and
they wonder why they. Yeah, it's all right, and they wonder why they're never satisfied. I had to move back to my hometown for a little while back, and it had been a long time. I've moved in a lot of different places, but it was interesting seeing old friends from high school, because one thing I noticed is that they all watched each other's Facebooks, you know, to see who was doing what. I couldn't do it, man.
It's a mixture between an electronic sewing circle and just dial-up Schadenfreude. Because all you do is go on there and go, look at my ex-girlfriends. Look, yes! Look at that fat git that she ended up with. That's it. Dream of me for the rest of your life. And that's basically what you do. I'll tell you another thing that's interesting about Facebook. If you've read the Kubark document, it was taken from William Sargent and Ewan Cameron's work on disintegration of the memory, annihilation of the mind, as Ewan Cameron caused it, which is basically wiping memory so that you can put a new memory in. Like, he's literally reducing somebody to a blank slate so that you have to teach them how to use the toilet again. But the point about that was, from that you got several documents like the Kubark document and the psychological operations in warfare, human resources exploitation, various of the torture and interrogation manuals, and showing you how to keep prisoners of war so that they become more malleable. And the one thing that they recommend above anything else is isolation and overstimulation, which is why you get people in a solitary confinement with a light on 24 hours a day. They're overstimulated, but they're isolated. You get white noise, or you get a loop of 7 seconds, so it's infinitely irritating. So you're overstimulated and you're isolated, and nobody stops it. Well, what causes overstimulation and isolation? Facebook. By very definition, you're isolated because you're behind a screen on your own, watching other people, desperately trying to catch up with a million different threads, looking at the adverts, checking on your Farmville, or whatever that nonsense is called, which, by the way, is based on a Skinner box. Those games are not designed for the pleasure of the gamer. They're designed to keep you in the game for as long as physically possible.
Yes, tell the people about that a little. That's
basically
good stuff.
It. How it works is a rat in a maze, which is an expansion of the Skinner box experiments. It's behavioral psychology, and it is operant conditioning, basically. When they press on the lever, they get a bit of food. They press on the lever again, they get a bit of food. They press on the lever the third time, and they get electrocuted. Now, logic dictates that they stop pressing the lever. What's bizarre is that they start pressing it frantically because they got a reward before, and so it's better to get a reward occasionally than not at all. And so that's the bizarre thing. So with Farmville and various other games, if you don't stay in the game, your crops die. You've got to try and encourage other people to come into the game and help you. And I don't really understand how it works, but basically the whole point is to keep in. Certain other games like that require you, like the new Kim Kardashian game, actually, app, which is one of the most popular apps of all time, for God's sake.
Oh my God, we're in trouble.
Yeah, well, obviously. But you have to buy things in the game that don't really do anything, but they cost you real money, like outfits for your character and stuff like that, and things to maintain your avatar, whatever it's called. But and that's kind of despicable, really, because particularly this is aimed at a lot of young kids that perhaps, well, most people don't see how these things work, because you're not going at it with okay, let's see how this is going to trick me. You're going in, oh, this is cool, I like this, I'm going to play this game or whatever. And before you realise it, you're on it 4 or 5 hours a day.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of do you remember there was a craze there for a while where kids would raise their own little eggs, but they were digital eggs?
The Tamagotchis or whatever they were called.
Yeah, so kind of that too. It also reminds me of something else I noticed when YouTube went to the connection with Google Chrome, or Google whatever it is. It's weird how they have in the upper right-hand corner a bell. It reminded me of Pavlov's dog. You see the connection, right?
Yeah, and it's weird because, the notifications that you get on there, I don't know how to turn it off. It irritates everything. When you get a phone, it's like you can't just have it as a phone and then occasionally check your email or whatever. You've got to link that and your Facebook and your Twitter, and it's like, I don't have a Twitter account, and your phone doesn't understand that. It's like, you don't have a Twitter account. Well, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to work this particular phone then. Maybe that's just me because I'm a complete Luddite when it comes to technology. But yeah, I don't like that, this web of put all your information, all your different nodes, and where we can get you on this and we can get you on this, and put your Snapchat on and put your this on and Snapchat's an interesting one as well. That is very popular at the minute, and it's fleeting, it's temporary. That's the whole point of it. You know what I mean? It deletes itself after I don't know how long. And
Instagram's the new hot thing too. What do you think about that one?
I don't use it, but
it's for the narcissist and us all.
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. All you're getting is people on there flashing money and flashing there's me sat in this car and this car and this car and this car. Yeah, it's all about narcissism. What's interesting about social media is because you've got that separation, the anonymity. It's not far off the results of the Stanford research project, the Stanford prison experiment, where they found that basically by doing something as simple as giving the people reflective sunglasses, it gave them an air of anonymity and allowed them to sort of de-individuate and basically act out of their normal moral parameters. It does that, basically. So you say stuff on there that you would never say to somebody's face. And so what's that caused? Twitter beef. You go on certain hip-hop sites and basically there's a Twitter beef popping off between major artists almost daily, and then you go on YouTube and you can find the results of some of these Twitter beefs. These very famous videos of some people beating 7 bells out of people, people getting into real bother for talking a bit slick on social media.
Hey, let me ask you this one too, and this has been great too, man. The hour is almost up, the first hour. We'll take a break here in a little bit. This is a question I wanted to ask you, and I'm watching the chat room as well. If anybody out there is listening, want to check out the chat room, it's psn.com. psnradio.com. Check out Rigged Reality chat. Anyway, somebody in there asked the same question. It's a good one too, man. So we can hit this, and then after this, we could take a break if you like for a few minutes, and then we'll come back.
Sure, whatever, man.
Here we go. So is there a way that we can tell if somebody's under mind control? How can you tell if a celebrity or somebody in an interview or something is under some form of mind control?
Well, the short answer is you probably could. I mean, there are certain things that again are red flags. Having a multiple personality disorder, like Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan. they've both got personalities that are British, that don't know who they are. They don't, like Lindsay Lohan, I believe, is called Margot, and she doesn't know who Lindsay Lohan is. And Britney Spears is called Diane, I believe. I may have got those mixed up. But basically, they don't know who the person is. This is a genuine multiple personality or dissociated identity disorder. That's one sort of clue. You could perhaps look at people seeming to go into a sort of trance state, like a hypnotic trance, I suppose. There's videos of Britney Spears, videos of Anna Nicole Smith, and various people like that who are doing things that seem very robotic. And
a lot of these so-called Illuminati videos are actually pushing this mind control idea. They use the three kind of cha, and it's that even goes back to casting spells, if you will. But the cha, you know. Yeah. And then it's like 40-year-old men writing songs about not thinking about nothing, man, just doing what I want, and it's like, come on, man, really? But anyway.
If they had any, they'd wake up and scream, wouldn't they? But, like, Christ, what am I doing with my life? I'm
seriously.
13-year-old girls, it's all right. I'll dab my tears with this money.
Yeah, right. But no, you were on it though, right? Like, I mean, Britney's a great example. Oh, here's a really crazy one. I put this in a video over a year ago, but this was a news story that came out. Lindsay Lohan, Lady Gaga, and Lana Del Rey all had an overnight. They stayed the night with each other, and the next morning, the paparazzi was taking pictures of Lindsay outside, like leaving. And she had somebody had pulled out chunks of her hair, like she was missing big chunks of her hair at the top of her head. Anybody out there want to go look it up? Go for it. You'll see this. But very interesting. So that kind of went back to the mind control for me, maybe ritual type stuff.
Yeah, very, very possibly. I mean, this is the thing. You can speculate. There's some people where there's more flags than others. So
there's a lot of abuse involved, right? Like to break the personality. What do they have to? I mean, give us an idea of kind of, what do they do to break that personality? Because they have to divide it to control them, and that goes back to the monarch butterfly stuff as well.
In the monarch experiments, which by the way was real. I forget who it was. It might have been again William Colby. I may be wrong, but a journalist asked him, "What about monarch?" And he said, "No, we stopped that in the 60s and the 70s," and then moved the question on. But it was a tacit admission of the project's existence. Also, there were Claudia Mullin and Christine Di Nicola received an official apology for their involvement in, I believe it was Artichoke was the official project that they were under, but it was training them to be sex slaves. Claudia Mullin was 9 at the time that they were training her to be a prostitute, and so that would be a particularly effective way. The traumatizing elements that were done against Christine Di Nicola were including forced druggings, isolation, putting them in really stressful, horrible situations where they had to attack people and such like that. These were started to her when she was 4. So, there is an official sort of documentation of this. A lot of it seems to be remarkably similar to experiments done by Mengele. A lot of the sort of barbiturate-induced comas, use of electroshock, stelazine, thorazine, this type of thing, trauma bonding, that element of he essentially was making twins kill their sibling, and the trauma would work very, very similar to the way that a pimp just controls a woman by just crushing your ego. Essentially, if you can crush somebody's ego and personality to the point where they just feel completely worthless, 2 things will happen. They'll start blaming themselves for everything that goes wrong in the world and in their life particularly. And also, every time they'll understand that they're nothing, they're worthless, they're vulnerable, they can't fight back. And so they'll understand that their controller, their abuser, could kill them. He could destroy them. He could end them. He could do whatever he wanted to them. And so the bizarre thing is that, it's Stockholm Syndrome. You start to admire and respect your captor or your abuser because they've chosen to be merciful to you. And then you interpret that mercy as true love. And this is why you get this concept, this it's a stereotype, but this, oh, thank you, Daddy, this pimps and prostitutes and stuff like that. The real sort of devotion to somebody that's given you a black eye 30 seconds earlier.
True. Hey, I'll tell you what, man. This is because we're getting into just great stuff here, and here in a little bit on the second hour, I want to talk about triggers and things like that as well. And there's plenty more to cover. So let's go ahead and we're going to go and take a little bit of a break. I'm going to run the station ads and whatnot, and we'll a couple minutes or so, folks. We're going to get that moving. Guys, once again, this is KJ Ozborne here with you, your host, and we're talking to our friend Neil Sanders, who is an amazing researcher and author. We'll be talking more about his book on the second hour and more of his research into mind control and such. Okay, so stick with us, folks. We'll be right back with you. Thank you.
All systems are functional.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of radio.
This is the Ozman, one of the voices in the Jackal's head.
Are we alone in the universe?
Now, I have a voice from the Jackal's head. Let us creature.
Is there life after death?
I'm Nick Pope, and now I'm a voice inside the Jackal's head.
Is the government keeping secrets from us?
This is Stephen Bassett, and I am now a voice inside the Jackal's head.
Will the Cubs ever win the World Series?
I am now a voice inside the Jackal's head.
And that was Lloyd Pye.
And who the hell are these voices inside my head? Listen live on the Jackal's head and find out.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application, Mobile Talk Radio. Imagine having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. You'll be surprised how easy it is to use.
So I think what's going on here is that Obama is banking on unemployment falling.
Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store. Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile Talk Radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
All systems are functional.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of radio.
This is the Ozman, one of the voices in the Jackal's head.
Are we alone in the universe?
Now, I have a voice from the Jackal's head. Let us creature.
Is there life after death?
I'm Nick Pope, and now I'm a voice inside the Jackal's head.
Is the government keeping secrets from us?
This is Stephen Bassett, and I am now a voice inside the Jackal's head.
Will the Cubs ever win the World Series?
I am now a voice inside the Jackal's head.
And that was Lloyd Pye.
And who the hell are these voices inside my head? Listen live on the Jackal's head and find out.
All right, folks, welcome back. Once again, this is KJ with Rigged Reality Radio, your alternative to the alternative media. And we're speaking with our friend Neil Sanders, all about mind control and much, much more. We have a chat room going out there right now. We appreciate our friends in the chat room. If you'd like to call in and have any questions for Neil, you can call us at 786-245-8127. If you got some questions, you can also throw those into the chat room. I'm trying to check that stuff as well. So anyway, guys, yes, we're back with Neil. Neil, how you doing? You still with us?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Sorry for lagging a bit. Just because it's about 2 a.m. here, so.
No problem. That's okay, man. Well, you should have taken your bath salts. You know we were going to do this. Just kidding. Now, did you guys have that craze out there? Actually, speaking of bath salts, that was a big deal out here.
Methadrones. Like the thing is, that was a weird one actually. Like this again, it shows you like how methadone has been available in various forms for ages in various sort of like legal highs that were available when I was going to festivals like 10 years ago. These particular like uppers were available if you wanted, and then all of a sudden it was like again it's the hype, all this good nonsense, the bloke biting the guy's face off, and he discovered that he wasn't actually on methadone or MCAT or bath salts or whatever you want to call it. Like it's just all this hype is, to me, it always strikes me as a marketing campaign. Whenever there's a new drug, the best one, right, is crack. Go now, like don't do it now. Sorry. Don't listen to me. Go later, right? Okay, and watch any news report on the crack explosion in South Central, and like it's almost uniform. A new, highly addictive, incredibly powerful, cheap drug has hit the streets. It's like, are you mental? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it is just an advertising campaign. I didn't know about it until you told me about it. I didn't even think about taking it until I found out that celebrities were taking it.
That is so true, man.
This is what happened every single time. I'm very, very suspicious of every drug explosion. Like, you could get cynical, and again, like, I'm not having a go at the artists or anything, but you tell me a drug that's not intimately connected to a particular type of music scene. Like, well, you know, ecstasy, dance music, like marijuana, reggae, amphetamines, punk. Like,
it's interesting, man. You reminded me, I saw, like, this is years ago, but I saw Chuck D from Public Enemy. He was doing an interview, and he was saying that the white man had marketed Old English. It's this malt liquor here in America.
Yeah.
Right?
40s, and yeah.
There you go. Now, so that night, I went out and bought 4 of them, of course. I was like 22 years old. You know, I was like, oh, I got to get some of this. It's that good. It, like, makes you a zombie? Sure. You know, why not?
Damn right. Like, you know, yeah, absolutely. This is what people want. It's the same as like we were talking earlier about the various, don't take this strain of drug, it killed this person. Like, what most people say is, right, pass that shit. Like, that's the good stuff, basically. So, you know, that it's, and again, these people are not stupid. So are they massively irresponsible, or do they know what they're doing?
Well, that's another great example of why, excuse me, why it's so important for us to, you know, unplug from that stuff. I mean, you know, but then again, there's the fine line. Like, I know you like to watch a lot of media, but you're very aware. So I think that's the first step. You know, first be aware for
sports. So I tend to watch a lot of comedy. I don't watch don't get me wrong. I don't sit there I watch stuff that I like, but I'm not averse to sitting and watching the television. I will read a book as well. You know, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, of course. No, and I just don't have the strength, man. I can't have cable and stuff. I don't want that many choices because I know me.
Well,
I can't do it.
You know, if you've got 500 channels, right? Okay. Ooh, choking victim reference there. If you've got 500 channels, right? Okay. You've got infinite choice. So you know what I find often I was doing if I've got a night where I'm watching the television is flicking, because there's bound to be something better on. You know what's really bizarre, right? Okay, I've got a massive DVD collection over there, right? There'll be days when I'm sat there going, oh, I don't want to watch any of these. I don't want to watch them. I don't want to watch them. And then a film will come on television, Commando, I don't know, Godfather 2, anything, like, okay, that I've got on DVD, but I'll watch it when it's on television. Why? You know why? Because it removed the responsibility of decision from me.
Nice. Yeah, that's interesting. And, you know, don't get me wrong, man. I rent movies constantly. We talked before we went on air, but I'm a film student, you know, so I'm a geek, man. I used to write horror, and
Yeah,
I still watch, but a lot of the times, really, anymore, I'm watching it because I'm aware, and then I make videos talking about things I see. You know,
Having said that, I haven't seen a film. There's not been a film that I've wanted to go and see at the cinema. I can't remember the last. I can't even think of the last new film that I want to see. I tried watching Godzilla, and I thought this is crap. So I stuck it out, but I wasn't very impressed.
It's hard to find a good one, but the best movies I found that I enjoy are the independent ones. There's one called Blue Ruin. I would suggest to anybody. It reminds me of early Coen Brothers stuff, where it's just a very simple idea of this guy that's basically homeless finds out somebody killed his family or something, so he decides to get revenge, and he has no clue what he's doing, and it's just amazing. It's a small town movie, but I like stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've just thought of this, actually, but the destruction of the video shop. Like, the video shop was a place for sort of contemptive browse. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
I like to video shop. I hate Netflix. I don't subscriber because the choice seems so directed because you've only got that page or you've got a whole list. It doesn't seem as like...
It's not as personal, man.
No, yeah.
Yeah, because... I literally rent from a video store. There's a video store I go to over here by my house, man, and I just go there.
We don't have any in this country as far as...
Oh, really?
No, they're dead. They're all dead. Like, it was Blockbuster was the big thing, and they've gone out of business.
That's
so
too
this
bad.
Is the point. As far as I'm aware, certainly anywhere near where I live, there is no DVD Blu-ray rental place. So your options are illegal sites or... Netflix or that kind of thing, and you can't get Hulu and things like that in England. Well, you might be able to. I don't know actually.
Really? That's too bad.
Well, I might be.
But I'm sure there's something. I mean, but just like you say, it's basically a hassle.
A lot of my friends are on Netflix, and basically they find the same thing. They find that it's almost like it's not updated as much as they'd like it to be. The access to sort of bizarre or like obscure older films is out. It becomes because you know you've got it there.
Here's a fun fact. Oh, here's a fun fact for your. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I was just saying, because you've got it, in the same way as your DVD collection, you don't want it. What's the fun in biscuits if there's always biscuits?
No, that's true. You're right. And it's cool because, I know everybody that works at this video store. I go in and we sit around talking about what people are renting, what you've heard about, what's cool. It's like it helps. It's interesting.
Yeah, you can get advice. You can get personable advice. All you're getting is reviews.
But it isn't.
And the top of the page. That's what you've got to go off.
And it is interesting, though, because I do find all these movies, though, that there's so much programming going on, and a lot of the horror films I'm seeing lately, it's like no good guy wins in the end, like the bad guy kills everybody, and it's like, dude, that sucks.
I've noticed that. Like, in a lot of the sort of, like, the remakes and stuff, a lot of the characters are not that likable. Like, they're flawed characters, but like, kind of grimly flawed characters. Yeah, that is interesting.
Big time. And I'm actually I've been doing research on a video, and it's all about that, but it's pushing the idea of this sympathy for the devil, if you will. It's you know what I mean? It's like the good guys now are people who sometimes need to slit your throat, that's kind of what
Jack
they need to
Bauer do. And, loads of people. I mean, the concept of the anti-hero is not new, but yeah, I mean, a lot of other people have talked about this concept of the dark hero. I mean, depends how far you want to push this, depends how cynical you want to be. I can tell you right now that the CIA has got a Hollywood liaison operation. Now, what this could be is putting the idea that sometimes as a good guy, you have to make hard decisions. Do you know that the Dark Knight, I believe it is, the second Batman film, is a allegory of the presidency of George Bush?
No way.
Yeah. You basically, think about it. He uses, he has to, for the greater good, use surveillance technology and be a bit bad and hurt a few people and stuff like that for the greater good, obviously.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not saying that it couldn't be possible. I see that, but you're right. I love how they do that, or I don't. I mean, I did a video on the Patriot where he kind of reenacted 9/11. I know that sounds random, but they do that kind of stuff. Definitely, definitely.
Absolutely, they do. I mean, the most overt example of it is if you want to use like films like Transformers, Iron Man, etc., they get a final rewrite of the script by the Department of Defense and the military on the understanding that they can use their technology in the film. But basically, if we're letting you use this aircraft carrier, jet, whatever, you're not making us look bad, sir. And so there's a plethora of examples where basically films have been rewritten to cater to the need of the American military rather than the narrative of the actual film.
Well, it's not long ago I did a video, and it was called "Could Matt Damon and Ben Affleck Be CIA Operatives?" And in that, I showed a lot of that stuff. It's like we talked about this last night, even that if you watch the award shows in America, a lot of times they're playing out exactly things that are happening as far as war and politics. Like Argo and Homeland.
Argo and stuff like that. There's that Ron Paul interview where they all give each other massive third-degree Mason grips and stuff like that, pass grips.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And such like that.
I'm glad you went there. People get mad at me when I've said that about Ron Paul, but he's definitely a Mason. He's playing his part. Yeah, he's doing what he's got to do,
come on. People that... Right. I understand that we should vote. It's always important to vote. If you don't vote, you don't get a say. If you vote, you don't get a say. Right, okay. What is voting? Oh, people have died for your right to vote. And don't get me wrong, this isn't apathy. This is disgust at the system that we're in. Who deigned to give us 2 people to vote for? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. You can have this landed gentry on the left, or you can have this landed gentry on the right. Serfs, which one of these landed gentries would you prefer to lead you?
Neil, do you remember there was a story in England a few years ago, and I covered it back then, but a little girl out there made news, not just nationwide, but all over the world. She did a school report and found out all the American presidents but one related to King of England, right?
Well, there's various dynastic lines, but of course, they're all interconnected. I mean, it was Freeman that actually, and various other people, but, they're also... The particular, the George Bush and Cheney's and all of those, even Obama's and Clinton's and stuff like that, are related to people like Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Marilyn Monroe, Madonna, Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and Celine Dion and Britney Spears, and all of these people. It's like, hang on.
Let me ask you this. How do you think, though, that the celebrities that are under some form of control, how do you think they're used? Can we learn anything from the way they're being used and what they're being pushed?
My daughter, which I don't have, started acting like Miley Cyrus. I'd nail her feet to the floor.
Right.
So that's one way, I suppose. It's treated like... I said this on another radio show, and I forgive my language. But the best example of this is the South Park episode, which is about Paris Hilton, called The Stupid Spoiled Whore Playset, which is a thing where you get to be like Paris Hilton. Look at the popularity of Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian is a bad porn star. To call
Definitely,
her a porn star is a denigration of porn stars, right? That's a denigration of the worst, most methed up porn star filmed behind an Arby's at 4 o'clock in the morning by a guy on his phone, right? That's a disgrace to that person to call Kim Kardashian a porn star. That's how low this girl is, right? Okay, and she's lionized as the example of what people should grow up to be. Because the success and the outward, great. She's like Imelda Marcos or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Oh, she's very glamorous. Obviously, it's built on the blood of people. But her father as well.
They had connections to the OJ. Her father was OJ's attorney.
He also had connections to Roy Radian's cocaine death as well. He's murdered by Bill Mensa, who was a
right. And of course, there's their Christmas cards where they're on the Masonic floor, and we won't even get into all that. But there's all that stupid stuff with these people. But you're right. Either they really are that popular, or the media's up in their numbers. And I know that somebody busted Twitter or one of them for doing that. They were giving all these.
All the time. Like Bieber and Cyrus and all the YouTube views and the Twitter followers and stuff like that. And you know why that is? It's because it's the same. it's the same principle as why before an election, or before any type of sort of political action like that, do you always see polls, or before a war, or before anything of any significance, really? You see polls in newspapers and on, sir, 75% of people are in favour of invading Iraq, 79% of people are in favour of invading Iraq, or whatever. And so people go, oh, do you see the news? The news said that 79% of people are in favour of... I mean, I'm not, but 79% of people are. Did you say that? 79%.
Exactly.
And then it becomes a fact. And then all of a sudden, I really want to go against 79% of the entire population? You know, look, if this is
go with the flow, man.
Yeah, if this is the way the winds are blowing, then unfortunately that's it. So you can manipulate people into following your cause by being very, very popular. I mean, the best example is sports brands. Nike, for example. You know, all they have to do is say, you know that shoe we did like 10 years ago? We've done it again, but we've got a different colour on there. And people will kill each other to get that. And seriously, people have shot it. There's a guy recently shot someone and then got back in line to get his Jordans.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's just a random thing kind of along these lines, but even when I was like a kid in high school, and even to this day, I always personally hated labels. And I remember like my mom, back when your parents would buy your clothes, way back in the day, you know, back when you were 25, but you know, they'd buy me stuff when I was in school, and I would even pull the label out of the stitching of things just to get the label off, because even back then I felt like it was stupid. Like, I don't want to walk around and be a billboard for this company or have to fit into a group. I never liked fitting into groups. I think most of us
it's an interesting
have that
thing
in common.
because, like, you know, I'd be lying if I said I never wore anything that was a brand. You know, I'm not a Armani, Gucci type person. I tend to wear like skate and the hip hoppy type of things and stuff like that. But it's interesting about what you use a brand for. You're using that to tell other people a message about yourself. I'm into this. I'm this type of person. But what's very strange is none of these things are real. Okay, I'll give you an example. Adidas shell toes. To a Run DMC fan, they have very, very, very great connotations. To a skateboarder, they have very, very different connotations. To someone that plays soccer or football, they have even different connotations. To someone that's a break dancer, they have different connotations. To someone that's into nu metal like Korn, they have different connotations. Though all of those different understandings of that product are correct, and yet it's one product. So how can that be? Because it's presented in such a way that you apply your own meaning to these things, and they become like a talisman of an expression of trying to. Well, I'll tell you very basically. This is how products work, right? Okay, people want to understand their place in the world, and they want to be part of a larger group. That's not me. That's Douglas Atkin, who was basically product manager at Procter & Gamble. He studied cults because he felt that basically the best way to get people involved in brand identity is use the same methodology that's used in cults. And when people go for any brand or any product, they're trying to understand their place in the world and to express this place that they found in the world through talisman, through symbols, through signifiers. And that's how it works. And so if you can figure out or direct people, like, you want to be like Kim Kardashian, you want to be like this person, then you can give them the talismans to wear to be like that person. And so, yeah, I mean, this is the interesting thing about brands. I mean, you could make the argument, and I've just been devil's advocate because I'm an arse like that, that by not wearing brands, you're making a very, very determined statement as well. Do you know what I mean? So
I do.
I'm not. That's not a criticism. It's just, you know, it's very difficult to escape because we get so much of our understanding from interaction. And so much of this interaction is tainted by hierarchical systems that are imposed on you. And they're imposed on you to confuse you and to make you chase your own tail and to basically follow these unachievable dreams.
No, absolutely. No, you're right, man. I mean, you can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, man.
Okay, good. Just checking. But no, you're on it. And I wanted to ask you, too, I wanted to get into some of the hypnosis, the hypnotism angle on things as well. How do you mention this at the beginning of the show that you're a hypnotherapist as well, but But along with that, I mean, how do you see mass hypnosis working? Obviously, it can work through television and things like that, but how do you see that working on people as a system? You see it's obviously happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same principle. It's make people have an understanding of the world by aligning themselves to a group, paint a perception. I mean, this is Walter Lippmann. Walter Lippmann said that people understand the world by the pictures that are painted inside their mind. An aardvark. Everyone now has got an aardvark, a picture of their understanding of an aardvark in their head. It's flashing up right now. You're looking at it. If I say a terrorist, you've got a picture of a terrorist now flashing up. Where'd you get that? Because you've never met a terrorist. You've probably never met an aardvark. So where did you get that? You got it from the television, you got it from books, you got it from the news media.
Great point.
Whatever. So if we can paint those pictures before they actually even enter these people's heads, we can control their reactions to them. And so this is how news media, this is why news media is so important to paint these pictures within people's minds so that they have a prescribed response to any stimuli.
Neil, I've got a good question here for you from the chat room from Betrayed. And
Hello.
It says, hey, Neil says hi. And it says, does Neil understand how symbolism and architecture and shaping of streets and cities can be used as manipulation and mind control? Do you know anything about anything like that?
Well, aside from the frustratum, not really, I'm afraid. I'm aware that certain cities are designed in what could be described as a magical sense. You know, there's various symbols and signs in the street signs. I live in Nottingham, and like in the city centre, we've got a big black mirror that is a fountain just outside the court, not the courthouse, the council building, which has got hundreds and hundreds of sun motifs all over it. And directly in line with that is a big spire. There's a dome on top of that, which is obviously the feminine. And directly opposite that, there's a big spire from another building that's got a huge Masonic sort of artwork on the front. Next to that is a big thing that we've got called the space mirror, which is a big mirror that's sort of a big, massive curved disc, and that points directly at the spire as well. So that's another feminine pointing at the masculine. And we've got a place called Minerva Court. We've got Masonic Place. We used to have a pub called Templars next to Masonic Place and stuff like that. So there are these things that I'm aware. As regards to specifically mind control, no, I don't. What I do know about is I'm sorry, I don't. But what I do know about is the Gruen transfer, which could be what you might be talking about, or you could be talking about the use of various symbols, which I'm afraid I don't know. But the Gruen transfer is what's used in shopping centres, and the point of it is to make the layout purposely confusing, make everything look the same, have it in a spiral or a figure of eight configuration. IKEA is usually a good one for that because it goes in a massive strange maze that goes all around it. The point is to confuse your senses. You've got a finite amount of bandwidth that you can take in information. So if the layout is confusing, and if you're having to think about where you're walking and stuff like that, and everything looks the same, then you've got less bandwidth. If they're pumping music, you've got even less bandwidth. If there's loads of advertising things dangling down in front of you, you've got even less. And all of a sudden you might find yourself buying something and walking out of the shop and going, what the... I've come out there with 20 CDs and 100 weight of chewing gum. I don't even use chewing gum. I went in there to buy a plug. Like, what is going on? Do you know what I mean? Like that's how it would work within a shopping centre. It's a basically point of sale marketing technique that is used to befuddle the customers. That's why you've got impulse buys at the till, because by that time you're so sort of like bewildered and confused, you just want to get out there, that your critical analysis is reduced to the point that basically you just go, chocolate, nice, and put it in your trolley, and then
Did you ever see the movie called Idiocracy?
Oh no! You know what? I haven't actually seen that. It's done by the chappie from Beavis and Butthead, isn't it? I've seen Office Space. I've never seen Idiocracy. And I don't know why.
Please do, and then email me sometime, and we'll talk about it. I've really good.
I don't know why I've never got around to watching that. So.
It's just all about kind of what happens if society kept if society kept dumbing down 500 years from now, what it'd be like, basically, and it's kind of frightening. But
something like 30-second television shows or something like that.
Right, it's absolutely crazy, but it's very kind of spot on too. It's got a lot of really good stuff to say there, a lot of satire. But
who's the sharp guy, Mike Judge?
What's that, Mike Judge?
Yeah, that's the guy that did it. Isn't it the guy that from Beavis and Butthead?
That's him, yeah. King of the Hill, and he's He's from Texas, I think. He is. Well, let me ask you this now. Let's get into some of the talk about hypnosis. I mean, do you actually hypnotize people, is that right?
Yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist. I have a practice.
So, sorry, that's kind of a dumb question from me, but I really don't know much about it. But I do want to know, though, man. I mean, I've been to a couple of those things. I lived in Hawaii for a little while, and there was one comedy club in Maui, and we used to go there like every weekend, but every month, one time a month, they had a guy in there that was hypnotizing people. And it seemed like he got the majority of people. You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? How are some people programmed to do it? Some people can't. Tell us about it.
There's various schools of thought, right? Okay, I'll tell you now that the Artichoke documents say, which is the precursor to MK Ultra, declassified documents says that basically anyone can be hypnotized given the right conditions. There's different schools of thought. Technically, you don't really hypnotize someone in hypnotherapy. You allow for the conditions for them to hypnotize themselves. You just basically do an eye fixation and then talk to them in a particular way to relax them, and then you talk to them in a way that deepens the relaxation. This is a sort of strange thing. Hypnosis can take place within seconds. There is immediate induction techniques that you can do if the client allows you to do that. You can't just run up to someone in the street and just put them into a trance. It's not like a Vulcan nerve pinch or anything like that.
Yeah.
You basically talk to somebody in such a way that you're kind of like a meditation instructor or like guided meditation, that sort of thing. How I would induce a trance is you do an eye induction. I'd suggest that their eyes were becoming heavy and tired, and then I would do a series of things to deepen that trance. That's how I would do it, basically. Hypnosis is a bizarre thing because it doesn't feel, at a therapeutic level, it doesn't feel like you'd think you feel. You could wake up, you could open your eyes, you could stand up if you wanted to. Like, it's basically feels like, when you wake up on a Sunday morning, you can kind of hear people moving around, but you just can't be bothered to open your eyes. It feels like that.
Well, I don't know, this might be kind of a weird question, but I imagine you really have to be, careful with how you use it, obviously. It's easy to abuse, I imagine, something like that. Do you have any stories of people who've abused?
Well, there are people that have abused it, but the thing is that what I've discovered being a practitioner is that the documents are obviously missing something, because there are various people. J.G. Watkins was getting people to attack superior officers, like saying, making the suggestion that these officers that were walking in were actually spies, and for you to attack them. And he was so successful that one of them actually tried to stab his superior officer with a hidden penknife that he had. Various other people were actually inducing people to have sex and get naked by the use of hypnosis. William Buckley was one of the people that was actually doing that. George Estabrooks was hypno-programming people. He was basically turning them into assassins in some cases, but also putting vast amounts of information in their heads that they didn't know that they had. And then they get to another person who also had the code or whatever. He'd deprogram them. They'd spill out all this information, and then they wouldn't know that they'd spilled out all this information. He'd put them back into their original personality, and they'd go home.
Have you ever heard of that book, Thanks for the Memories?
Yeah. Who's that? Is that the Bryce Taylor one?
Bryce Taylor, and how she's passed around between Bob Hope and presidents and all that. So what do you know with that? I've read it years ago, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
The thing about, Bryce was, I can't remember what her real name is.
There was another name. I know what you mean.
But basically, she was knocking about with, I've gone so simple, the FBI, Ted Gunderson, who does work on that.
Right.
McMartin Preschool, and his work with Paul Bonassi is superb. There was a lot of things that Bryce Kelly was strange, because basically she had a lot of things that actually sort of corroborated. Walter Bauer, who wrote the book Operation Mind Control, vividly remembers her actually being a hostess for Bob Hope at some event that he went to whilst researching his book Operation Mind Control. She claims that Bob Hope was her handler, and that his front as a comedian was just a way of getting him into espionage. Which sounds strange until you find out that Houdini was basically his escape acts. He basically escaped after 30 seconds, and the audience watched an empty stage for 2 hours whilst he was off doing espionage work. John Mulholland was a very, very famous sleight of hand magician. From the early 50s, he was popular, and he was employed by the CIA and ended up writing a manual teaching them how to surreptitiously slip LSD into people's drinks by the use of sleight of hand and making things disappear up your sleeve and stuff like that.
Wow.
Chuck Barris, who The Dating Game and The Gong Show.
Right, they made a movie about him.
Yeah, absolutely. He claims to be an assassin for the CIA. I mean, Dave McGowan has done a lot of work on this. He recently found out through his book that Stuart Copeland, I believe, who's the brother of the drummer from The Police, was a CIA agent, and obviously numerous other people connected to Stephen Stills was apparently connected to Phoenix operations and stuff like that, and it seems to run through it basically.
Neil, let me ask you this as well, and that's all good, man. Too, thank you too for rolling along with us, man. So you sound like you're wide awake, so we're doing good.
Yeah.
I got another question from the chat room. They're saying, can you ask Neil about Ursula and Sabina Eriksson and the incident in England? It sounds like some sort of mind control. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that was very strange. What we saw was two twins that they got arrested for something but got released, and then they basically threw themselves in front of traffic, or they seemingly threw themselves in front of traffic, and miraculously survived, or appeared to miraculously survive being run over by a lorry. Now, how much of this is editing, I don't know. There's various schools of thought within that. The suggestion is that basically it's very strange that these twins were acting in such a way. They seem to have very, very bizarre superhuman strength when the police were trying to restrain them. They were released after this, and I believe one of them went on and ended up basically murdered, or allegedly murdered, a guy that was in the Navy, and so again there's a lot of red flags that are sort of popping up. Twins, which you could connect to Mengele. They were both blonde, blue-eyed, which you could connect to Mengele.
Neil, I'm sorry. I want to throw out to the people too, just real quick, because it's important. You can go on YouTube and find footage of that, these girls freaking out, running in front of traffic. It's unbelievable. But go ahead.
Well, the thing was that she basically, one of them had later killed, knifed to death, some guy that was in the Navy, and so the suspicions were that perhaps it was an assassination, or alternatively that there was some type of military connection, and perhaps he triggered her and she'd gone off, or something like that. It was a very, very bizarre set of circumstances, basically. As you say, there's a documentary about it called, I think it's called Madness in the Fast Lane. I don't really know any more about it than that, because I don't know what's happened to these women, to be quite honest. But it was certainly a strange scenario.
Yeah, fair enough, man. And let me ask you this too, kind of going back to the mind control stuff with presidents. Did you ever see that video? You can find it on YouTube. I mean, it's not just something someone made. It's like legit footage. But it's President Clinton, and he looks totally under mind control. And they're like putting makeup on his face before an interview, and he's talking like a drone. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah, no, I've seen both. You've seen one of those Illuminati documentaries. I've actually seen the other footage where it came from, and it is equally as strange because the footage of Barbara Bush in that, where she keeps repeating the phrase, implies that she did that all in the same take, and that's not actually what happened. That's been edited together. She did the same thing in numerous takes, but to different states, basically. And then that documentary edited it together to make it look like she'd said it all in a line as a response to every single question. But the Clinton thing's weird. And the bit where he's basically saying, "Can we do Maryland? Can we do it? I love this. I love this." It's very, very, very strange. He's certainly, I mean, he's not responding. There's a lot. I mean, you could say a lot of people say, "Oh, he's just seasoned as putting his makeup on," but he does seem to spend an inordinate amount of time not blinking, seeming to lack any sort of physical response. I mean,
yeah,
it would make sense. Like,
seriously.
Well, I mean, just because basically. Why not control these people? Do you know, if you think that the president, has got really any say, or the prime minister's got actually any say, there's watch Yes Prime Minister. Like, basically, he says, well, I'm the prime minister, I've actually got no power, I don't control this, I don't control this, I don't control this, I don't control this, but I get all the slack off everybody. Like, these people are they're puppets. Like, they're puppets basically by design and also by the system. So it would make sense if you have this available thing to occasionally make them shut up and toe the line and do what they're told.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt that's the kind of stuff that's happening behind the scenes because we know it's a false paradigm. We get that. It's, you don't vote. There's no point. I do believe in local elections and things like that, though. I'm active in stuff like that. I believe in that. You can make a difference in your community, but otherwise there's really no point. I want to ask you something, man. I know you get a lot of background in psychology and whatnot as well, but there's an old school psychotherapist that I was a big fan of that he wrote a book called Motivation and Personality. It's Abraham Maslow. Do you know who that is?
Maslow? Yes, vaguely. He had
Self-actualizing.
Was it the series of things that drives and stuff like that?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he also breaks down personality types, and he kind of explains how this is kind of why ever since childhood we're attracted to and repelled by the same kinds of people. I don't know. It's interesting, but I figured I'd throw that out at you and just see if you knew anything about that. But the whole idea of self-actualizing and kind of being what you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to do, and
right. Okay. I mean, as far as my understanding goes and my remembrance of Maslow, it is that it's like basically you've got these different personality types, and therefore different people are driven by different things, and you fulfill a role and stuff like that. I may be completely wrong about that. That's my understanding of it. Some psychological schools of thought.
Yeah, that's okay. I thought I'd throw that one out at you.
No. You're absolutely. With all these schools of thought, it's very interesting sometimes to see who funded them. Because I'll put it one way, right? Okay, there's a very famous child psychologist called John Bowlby, who was just so happened to be connected to the Tavistock Institute, right? Okay. And at a certain time in British history, he put out some very eminent studies that basically showed that to remove the mother from the child whilst they're forming is particularly bad for them. Now, that may well be true, but the reason that was pushed at that particular time was because there was a big push to try and get women equal rights. And so that particular psychological study was used by certain elements to say, no, women, know your place, stay in the home, and do this, because at that particular time that was what they wanted to do. So, there are people that have made Kinsey is a fabulous example. Like, okay, a lot of what Kinsey did was wonderful, but a lot of what Kinsey did was seized upon by certain groups that wanted to publicize paedophilia and say that children were sexualized at birth, and basically, children had orgasms and all this sort of stuff. Now, Kinsey's particular studies on that sort of thing were flawed, because what they did was they found some paedophiles, one person who'd had sex with all 30 members of his family and had had sex with animals and inanimate objects, dead bodies, children, people of all ages and all sexes. This was the person that Kinsey used for his particular study. His name was Rex something. I'm just going through my notes to try and find this.
Very, very interesting, man. Yeah, but wow. That'd make a movie right there, a documentary. That's very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing was he was basically talking to sex offenders in prison. I'll give you an idea. Basically, the Kinsey Foundation still supports this view, okay, because it won't say that Kinsey was flawed. But the particular guy, Rex was his name, and he basically said that children from 9 months old or like even earlier up to prepubescent could experience orgasms whilst having sex with them. Now, he said that the sign of orgasm was wriggling around as if you're in pain, bleeding, screaming, shuddering, going into tense muscle spasms and that sort of thing, which any normal person would say that's a kid resisting being raped. But that was taken on, just straight out as being an indication, and then this was extrapolated into the studies of sexualization of children that were published by Kinsey, and there were other paedophiles that they actually encouraged. What was strange about it was they encouraged people. They said, "All right, this is interesting. We need it scientifically done." So they told them the method to record this scientifically, and then basically encouraged them to go and get to other children. I mean, Kinsey's a person that circumcised himself with a penknife with no anesthesia.
Dang, I didn't know that.
They also interviewed people from NAMBLA-style organisations, man, boy, love, whatever, basically. And I say it doesn't negate everything that was said by Kinsey. He sort of, equality attitudes and such like that. Fine. But the point is that it's a thing called third-party advocacy, which is essentially a Bayesian thing. We're hardwired to believe that people are in a position of authority because they know what they're doing. They must have got there by some hard graft, otherwise they wouldn't be there. Otherwise society's mad as a sack of tits, right?
Well, why do you think that it's such a thing with all these elites, so to speak? We see it in government and everywhere else, but entertainment. Why is it with this big pedophile connection? What is your take? I look at it, of course, more like with ritual and things like this. But what's your take on that, man?
It's an interesting and horrible and terrible subject. It's difficult to say. I would imagine that there are numerous reasons for it. Some of it is a pragmatic blackmail espionage type thing, with this sort of politicians and this type of midnight climax type of experiment where basically they're filmed and then you've got them in their pocket for forever. Some of it involves ritualization. That can't be denied. Whether satanic ritualization is the absolutely 100% correct phraseology for what's going on, I can't be sure. But it involves murder, drinking blood, drinking dog's urine, that sort of thing, pentagrams, inverted crosses, sacrifices. So we would use a catch-all phrase as satanic. Some of it is obviously... I think a lot of it is basically as a traumatizing thing. But it's basically, whenever everybody hears these stories, it's destructive for the morale of society.
But it's also, I think, a way of compromising each other, right? Isn't it? I mean, don't you think it's also,
Yeah, absolutely. The blackmail espionage sense. I mean, you only have to look at the Jeffrey Epstein story and find that all his houses in Mexico and on the border at Texas and in LA and wherever were all wired for sound with filming very, very technological film suites and stuff.
Well, kind of on that note, man, did you ever, is there anything you can talk about? Because I know that you were approached by different whistleblowers, so to speak, and insiders. Can you talk about anything that maybe kind of tripped you out that you were told or anything like this, or anything that kind of, some of the most interesting info that was leaked to you that you found out was legit? Anything like this?
Silent sound. I found out that. I mean, the evidence suggested that silent sound was real. It was used in Iraq, and it was basically they pumped speakers, and it had messages on there that basically affected the EEG patterns of the brain user, of the brain of the Iraqi soldiers. It caused it made them feel an emotion. If you can put, you know, when your brain feels an emotion, it kicks out an electronic signal. If you can mimic that signal, put it on a microwave and fire it at the brain, you cause a circuit loop whereby it thinks that is an organic feeling, and so there's no way to turn it off. And so you can make someone feel completely desolate just by pointing this thing at them. And this is what they were doing in Iraq. And I knew this because basically, despite the military's denial of it, Silent Sound, the company that made it, bragged about it on their website.
Yeah, there was some kind of a paranormal show that ran on one of those cable channels in America. This is a few years back, but the series they were trying to push at the time, it was a new series, had something to do with ghost encounters or whatever. So they had set something up. You may have heard of this.
Oh, the EV, the sort of the lower frequency thing.
Yes, talked in your head.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that exists. Like, you know, I mean, who was doing that? Ross Addy was doing that in the 60s. But the point I was making before was basically I was approached by people that worked on this Silent Sound, and even though they were sworn to secrecy, they were telling me I can't. You know, basically they did it and it worked and it destroyed people in front of them. I can't give you the names because I'll get them into trouble and stuff like that. But basically, a couple of people have approached me and said this thing was real, and they've shown me what I consider to be proof. Again, I don't want to go into it because I'll get them into trouble and stuff like that. But basically, that was a very weird thing. I've had a lot of people talk to me about ritual abuse and stuff like that, and that's very harrowing.
You should. Have you ever thought about doing a book on that? Because it's hard to get people to approach you on that subject. If you know,
I'd feel kind of bad about that because I'd feel kind of that I was profiting almost off, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, the sensationalizing of it. I mean, I do talk a bit about it in my books and stuff like that, and it obviously, you know, it's a real thing. But I'd feel personally, depending how you did it, obviously. But
for sure.
It's a bit of a minefield, really, because you're just profiting off somebody's misery. Where does the line come in? I'm doing other things at the minute, basically.
Well, oh sure, no, absolutely. Well, I was just throwing it out there, man. You know,
but I think it would be very, very good, and I think if somebody could do it, I'm sure there are books that basically have. Ritual abuse survivors' stories and such like that. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not inundated. I've had a couple of people tell me about it. It was, you know, it's very, very terrible for them, and I believed them as well. So, you know, there's nothing about what they said that made me doubt their story. And by strange coincidence, there was what was termed a satanic panic in Nottingham when I was younger, and by sheer coincidence. I by a bizarre friend of a friend connection, I know one of the girls that was involved in it, or I know of her story, and not only was she basically telling the truth and telling the same story over and over again, and with the best will in the world, this girl was too stupid to come up with anything. She wasn't a sharp knife in the drawer. She wasn't creative in any sense, and she stuck to her story. Even though she was basically ridiculed in the press, she received £25,000 in the early 80s. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, man. Well, let me ask you this, too, then. Your thoughts on reality TV itself. We talked a little bit off air on that, but what are your thoughts on reality TV? How is that programming people?
Well, I mean, it sells archetypes, doesn't it? It sells stereotypes of people. There was the question I asked you was because I found you'd worked briefly in the production of one of them. How soon do they decide what characters? Who's going to be the hero? Who's going to be the nasty guy? Who's going to be the sexy girl? Who's going to be the one that they ridicule? And he said before they've even chosen the guy, the actual people, you can edit. I said this as well. You give me 10 minutes of footage, I'll give you 3 different narratives.
You're right.
And you can do that, absolutely. So the idea of reality TV is a complete misnomer. Also, it's very, very bizarre. I mean, it's just training people to watch people sat in a living room as well.
Yeah.
You know,
it's fun. It's funny how many of these reality shows they've launched that have destroyed real life relationships and marriages too. I think.
Well, of course, because I mean, there was one in England where they basically set up a sham marriage between a contestant and a celebrity, and it destroyed his relationship, obviously, because his girlfriend wasn't happy with him getting married to someone else, and then that marriage broke down. Because it was obviously a sham thing that was pushed together, and his music career went completely, belly up, because basically everyone went, "Oh, you've sold out," and they do these things. Like, image and perception is all important. Reality is not important in a commercial sense. Because
do you remember that reality show was a few years back where they would give you the bigger secret you would reveal, the more money they would give you, and you would have to reveal the secrets in front of like family and friends, and people were talking about cheating on husbands and wives and stuff, and just really just. Oh yeah, man! I've got it.
That must have just started in America. Like
it was an American. I need to make a video on it and find it. The host was. This might help you all find it. Was Mark. He's got the same name as one of the famous Mark Wahlberg, but he's not that Mark Wahlberg. There's like another one, so it's the other Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, check that out.
Okay.
No relation to the film actor, but check that out because it was absolutely frightening, and that genuinely destroyed some people's lives. That TV show did.
What was that other one with that girl Brenda from 90210, where basically they got people to split up on that was the whole point of the show. Was
that's right.
Bitched about people and then split up with them over camera. Basically, just destroyed them on the thing and justified it. I mean, that was just monstrous.
Well, let me throw this at you, man. We're going to change gears here. I've got a question from the chat room. We have a little under 10 minutes, man. We're almost there. It's gone so fast, and it's been a real pleasure. So let me hit you with this one from Timmy20. Says, can I ask you about mnemonic circles and that technology? You know anything about that stuff?
I don't. I'm really sorry. Every single question that I've been asked, I've got absolutely no.
No, you're doing great. I don't know what that is either. So sorry, Timmy. That's beyond my scope as well. But well, since we have 10 minutes left, man, let's just kind of get into whatever you want to get into. And actually, you may want to talk about some of the hypnotherapy. Being a hypnotherapist, you want to kind of discuss that a little bit, why it's important and how it helps people.
Well, I mean, it works. This is the thing. I mean. I hate to sound like a bit of a prostitute here, but basically it is very, very effective, particularly if you can find somebody that practices curative methodology. How a curative hypnotherapist would work is basically they assume that any symptom that you've got is what we call a symptom. That can be depression, anxiety, biting your nails, fear of snakes, whatever. That's happened as a response, as a defense mechanism of your brain. Your brain basically wants to help you. Something's happened, and it's reacted in the most direct way. How can I stop this from ever happening again? So basically, you've got a symptom. Now, that's happened as a reaction to something. Someone's shouted at you in public, made you embarrassed or whatever. Now, that wouldn't happen to everybody, so you must have a belief about yourself. The belief basically was formed by another scenario where something happened, something very, very insignificant, happened to make you feel bad in some way. And so you had a reaction, a very, very a reaction that at the time served a purpose. And basically, so what you've got to do is you've got to reinterpret that defense mechanism in a way that's healthy for a person nowadays. And it's often something very, very strange, like that your brain interprets bizarrely, like weight loss, weight gain. I've had patients where basically they've had trouble losing weight because when they were very young, they got into an argument with somebody and they got shouted at because they were small. You're too little to play with us. And so the brain's made that reaction of, well, if I was bigger, I wouldn't get that horrible response anymore. Now that worked fine when you were 5. Now you're 35, you don't need that. So that's how it works, really. And so what hypnotherapy can do is reinterpret that scenario so you don't have that belief about yourself. And because you don't have that belief, you didn't really need that protection or prevention or whatever from getting into the scenario, so you don't need the symptom anymore. So basically that's how it would work, is you'd remove the symptom by reinterpreting the cause of it, or the reaction, basically.
So in a sense, you're almost really deprogramming people from all this programming that you reveal in a lot of your research. It's interesting to me.
That sounds kind of grand, but to an extent, yes. It's about, you can't change the world, obviously, but you can change people's reaction to the world, and often people's reaction is based on erroneous information. So that's how it would be. Some things, basically, like smoking, for example, it's a habitual thing, and so you can do various things very quickly. About an hour, you can get somebody to not smoke anymore. But I mean, like, hypnotherapy is very different from the MK Ultra sort of hypnosis. That's the point, because this is, I briefly touched on this earlier, is that all the results that are proven by the declassified documentation, I couldn't do, and the people that taught me couldn't do, and the best hypnotherapist that I know couldn't do. Why is that? Because there's something missing, right? There's an element of trauma. There's an element of trauma that has to be involved to get somebody to the point where basically they will respond to suggestion and respond to your thing to the point where it goes against A, their moral code, and B, their own self nature. Because the theory is that you can't do anything that would basically put somebody, you can't do something in hypnosis that would go against your moral code. In hypnotherapy, that's true. If you're willing to go against your scruples and traumatize the person, that's not true at all. There's various ways that you can actually set that up. You could basically, you could set it up so that someone believed that they're in a time of war. There are certain cases where murder is absolutely justifiable, and you could make it so that person believed that this was a scenario. This person's going to kill your kids unless you kill them. So kill them. You could. The second way is basically you could do it as a mundane scenario. I'm just at a shooting range. Bang, 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 like Sirhan. Oh no, there was someone in front of me, and Sirhan was firing blanks. But that's beside the point. And then the other way is basically you can be so manipulative that basically you can instill such a level of trust in this destroyed person that they understand that nothing you do would be a harm to them. So it might look like you're slitting your wrists, but you know your therapist would never do that. It might look like you're throwing acid in someone's face, but you know your therapist cares for you far too much to do that. That's the most devious way that it could be done.
Could you say that neuro-linguistic programming is kind of a form of hypnosis?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, basically, it's how you understand things through words and how you can reinterpret it. You can use certain neurolinguistic techniques in therapeutic hypnotherapy. There's a thing called a swish technique, where basically it's like a stage fright technique, where basically you would pinch your fingers together and imagine a certain word, and it fills you full of confidence, and that works by using neurolinguistic programming. It can be developed to such a technique that basically can be very, very powerful. It can influence people. It's not something that I've looked into greatly, because it's such a sort of psychotic thing that you have to change your appreciation and your intake of information, which is the world, in order for you to then think about it in such a way. So it can be very, again, it's like a hammer. I could build an orphanage with a hammer, or I could break all those orphans' legs with a hammer.
Well, hey, Neil, we only have like a few more minutes, so before we go, can you just talk a little bit about the book and maybe how we can find it?
Yeah, sure. As I say, it's called Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own. It's in 2 volumes. The first one basically details MK Ultra and the various types of personal mind control, and the second one details more mass mind control and the various things like that. It's available from my website, which is neilsandersmindcontrol.com. Also, I have a Facebook site, which is an author page for Neil Sanders. So if anybody wants to go on there, you can. I post quite a lot of stuff, even though I've just spent 20 minutes deriding the thing earlier. If you want to get in touch with me there, you can, via messages. It's also available on Amazon if you don't like using PayPal. And if people want to buy it on Kindle, both copies are also available on Kindle, and that's at Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk. Sorry to be such a corporate whore, but it allows to get the books at a much lower cost, basically.
You're doing get it out there. We want people to get their hands on it because we really just kind of, even after 2 hours, folks, we just skimmed the surface. It's been a real pleasure with you, Neil, and I know you all enjoyed it out there. I see you guys in the chat room. We appreciate it, and it's been great, man. At very last, Neil, you mentioned earlier just off air something about you got a little short coming out. You want to talk about that just for a second?
Oh yeah, no. Basically, I did like a sales seminar. I'm not sure whether I'm going to release this on DVD. It's available on the AV5 conference box set with a series of other things, but I might release it on its own as a DVD or just put it on YouTube. Actually, basically, it's a sales seminar. We've all been to these sales seminars where they teach you how to be more effective salesmen, and I did it like that. It was kind of like Alec Baldwin. I was very disrespectful to the audience, trying to teach them how to be better salesmen using the tricks of the trade to basically hoodwink the gullible masses into buying your products. So that'll be coming out soon, and basically it'll give you an insight of all the ways that you can extrapolate more money from your demographic market.
It's a satire on that, I guess, right?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Fair enough, man. Well, Neil, you've been a pleasure, man. Hey, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. No, I'm very flattered, and thank you very much. I'm so sorry I couldn't answer a single question.
Oh, stop. No, you did great. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants here. It's laid back. People know that. You did great, man. Believe me. So, hey, guys out there, once again, this is KJ Ozborne with Rigged Reality Radio. We're on psnradio.com. You can chat and get a phone number right there to call in and all that every week, Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard. Thanks again, guys. Rigged Reality Radio, your alternative to the alternative media. We'll see you here next week.